In this video, I'll be giving you a full Notion tutorial aimed specifically at agencies. I'll go step by step from beginner to intermediate to expert so that you can learn Notion without sacrificing your sanity. In this tutorial, we'll cover account setup, pages, blocks, and the text editor, databases and linked views of databases, relations and roll-ups, and some advanced Notion features like formulas and Notion automations. I'll be using lots of examples along the way so you can learn Notion in the same context that you'll be using it for your agency. But why should you listen to me in the first place? Well, if you're new here, hi, my name's Sam, and I'm a certified Notion consultant, and I've helped over 50 different agencies adopt Notion for their business. I also created the Notion for Agencies template that has been trusted by over 250 different agencies. And so if you would like to speed up the process of adopting Notion, definitely check that out with the link in the video description. But without further ado, let's dive in. So let's start with setting up our Notion account, and you can actually use the link in the description to find where I'm going to be showing you next. And if you do, I'll get a bit of kickback as an affiliate, so I really do appreciate if you use that link. So over on that link at Notion.so's homepage, we can see Notion here, and I'm going to jump over to their pricing to explain what plans they have. Now, currently this is set to yearly, so I'm just going to toggle this over to monthly, and this is in pounds. You might have yours in dollars, but you can see we have 4 different options: free, plus, business, and enterprise. And I would recommend for most agency owners to go for the plus plan. Now, you're going to need the plus plan if you're thinking about inviting team members into your workspace anyway. But the other key thing is that with the free account, you only have a set number of blocks that you're allowed, and I'll explain what blocks are in a later bit of the video. But we want to make sure we have unlimited blocks. We don't want to get to a point where you're creating a number of pages and formatting, and then Notion tells you you've run out of blocks. So that's probably the most important thing. With the plus account, you also get a few added features. Most recently, Notion brought out charts that you get. You have automations in Notion that are really helpful for working with teams. And so you get everything you need in the plus account in terms of features required. For the business and enterprise, this is more targeted at enterprise level companies, so 100 people companies or more. And unless you're interested really in the security and privacy of your account, I really don't think either option is needed for agencies, which is typically smaller teams. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead into the plus account and say get started. So first of all, we want to just set up our account by using our email. I'm going to use another email here, but you would use your work email. And then Notion is going to send you a verification code over on your email, and you can enter that in and hit continue. Then you can set up your profile, add a photo, and set a password for your account. And you can also choose to opt out of Notion's marketing, which I'm going to do, and hit continue. So now Notion takes you through that onboarding sequence, and the only thing that I'm going to encourage you to do here at this point is to select the For My Team option. Probably was going to do that anyway, but I've gone through the onboarding experience before, and when I didn't do that, it didn't give me team spaces, which we definitely want as a team. So we're going to hit continue. Then they want you to tell you about yourself. I think this is more for their own research, so I'm going to just add in any option. This isn't going to affect your account in any way, so you don't need to worry. But feel free to take your time when you go through this, and then you can go ahead and hit continue. Now you're going to give your workspace a name. So this is going to be the thing that appears right at the top of your account, and it's what everyone's going to see. So you want to make this your company name. I often see my clients using their own name, and they don't quite realize that that's not their profile. It's actually the workspace name. So we're just going to use my company name here, Sam Bird Co. And you can also add your icon, and this can also be, and you can also choose or add your icon, which could also be your business logo. And I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. So now Notion is asking you to invite some of your team members into the workspace. My recommendation is, if you haven't actually told your team about Notion, or you're just starting with Notion and you're seeing if it's right for you, I wouldn't add anyone into Notion for the time being. It's quite nice to have the freedom to actually play around with Notion yourself, build some sort of beta versions of your workspace before having anyone else come in and get confused by the information. Really, when we're introducing a new software to a team, we really want to consider change management and the change management process. And if you invite your team into Notion and they get used to Notion not being a source of truth and just being something like that's like a playground or something that isn't quite done, then they tend to not take Notion as seriously. Whereas if we're able to set up at least some workspaces for them to use or some solutions for them to use and begin actually training them on it and getting them to use it properly, it then sets the culture that Notion is the source of truth and the place to look to know when things are happening and tasks and all that sort of thing. So for the time being, I would skip adding someone to Notion for that reason. So we're now inside of Notion and we can go through their onboarding process that they have here just to orientate ourselves around the sidebar. So it says, welcome to your workspace, a virtual home to create, organize and share content. We then have how to get around your sidebar, jump to pages, keep track of work. We have every team, team spaces. It's showing us startups, pages to help us get started, templates. We've got the private area, which is telling us that we can create things in here, draft them in the private area, and then move them over to share them. And then I think that is everything. So that is a bit of an onboarding process that they've given us there. Now, what I want to show you in this account setup is the settings and members. So over here, we just want to come and do a few things. First of all, over on my account, just make sure that you have got your photo uploaded and your preferred name correctly, as this is what is going to appear when we tag people in database items like tasks or comments. So you want to make sure you have that set up ahead of time. And then in the settings, you can change your appearance here if you like. So for example, if we wanted this to appear in dark mode, but I prefer light mode. And then also you can decide what opens when you first start. So it could be your last visited page. It could be your home page. I'm going to leave it as it is. And also just make sure that the date and time is correct. So in the notifications, I do have some recommendations. First of all, if you're using Slack, I recommend you do connect it over here and add your account. And once you do that, Slack gives you a couple of options for how you want the notifications to appear. So one of the things you can actually do is have any of the activity in Notion be sent as a notification inside of Slack from your Notion sort of direct message connection. And you can either choose this to be for all activity or only for when someone tags you or comments in a comment that you've commented in, basically when someone is trying to get your attention. And I recommend selecting that one instead of the all activity. When you choose the all activity, that's basically going to be when someone edits a page you've been working on or small changes to database properties. And when you have that, you tend to get a lot of notifications. So you choose just the comments in the app mentions, and have all of your notifications coming into Slack as well if you're using Slack as sort of your key communication tool. For the rest of these settings, these look good to me. So I'm going to move on to the workspace settings. So over on here, we didn't get the opportunity to add our logo, so that I can add this now. And then also you could add allowed domains. So if you want anyone who has your company domain email access Notion automatically, you can add that in here as well. Now over on people, there's a few things I want to show you. First of all, we have this invite link and that's already been automatically switched on, which is great. And so essentially what this means is you can copy this link and send it to new team members. And just by having that link, they're able to join the workspace nice and easily. And the onboarding process I've often used with my clients is that we set up an automated email for whenever someone joins the team, and it has this universal link for them to join Notion. And so it means that you can keep the same email template and send that, and the team member can join Notion nice and easily. So we've got that toggled on, which is great. And then the other thing I want to establish here in the group section is a new group, which I'm calling Notion Admin. So I'm just going to hit new group here and call it Notion Admin. And for the time being, you can just assign yourself by toggling down here and adding a member, and just adding yourself here as one of the Notion admin. Now, essentially, the reason for creating this group and what Notion admins will have is access to everything in the Notion workspace, as well as full access to all of the databases. And so these should be the only people that can actually create things in Notion in terms of database structure and dashboard layouts, that kind of thing. And they should be the only people that should be able to give people full access, or give people access to the workspace. So that's new team members joining the workspace, but as well as any clients or any external members that you might be inviting on into Notion as guests. Now, the reason for having this rule of a Notion admin team is basically to ensure that the workspace stays in a good condition. Obviously, Notion is 100% customizable, and although that's a really good thing, the downside to that is it means different silos of teams can appear where they're all creating different solutions, and again, the single source of truth becomes outdated and people start not trusting Notion. Whereas if you have Notion admin, who are the people who are actually building the solutions, are in charge of editing things, inviting people on, then they're able to maintain things a lot easier. So now let's jump into actually looking at how to use Notion. And the first thing I want to cover is pages. So in Notion, everything is either a page or a block. So let's start with pages. So first of all, you can see there's already a page that's been created automatically in my sidebar in the private section. And it's this little get started page, which we'll actually use in a second because it's quite a nice representation of this. But I'm actually going to create a new page. And to do that, I've got a couple options. I could come up to here and you see it says create new page, and I can click that. And it's going to create a untitled page in my private bar, my private section of the sidebar here. If I want to delete that, I'm going to hit these three dots here and hit delete. Another alternative I have for creating pages is come into whatever section I want to add it to and hitting add a page. And then again, that's going to create a page for me here. So I'm going to name this page. So here we have the page, and let's edit this page. So here are some things we can do. First of all, if we bring our cursor over here, you see we have a add icon option. So I can actually add an icon, and it will automatically give me one with the emojis. So I can use emojis for my icons, for example. Or I can click over to Notion's icons, and this is their own native Notion icons. And I could choose a icon here. So I might actually choose one that looks like a page, and it asks me which color I want. I'm just going to keep it black. And now I have my page icon set up. I can also hover again, and you'll see it has add a cover. And the cover again is created automatically, and I can come up here to change the cover. And we have some gallery photos here, so we could use some of these here, whatever we like. Or we can either go over to Unsplash, which is a service Notion collaborates with, and we can type anything in here. So I could search for page, and again, I've got a nice few options here. I'm going to use this one, and I'm also going to reposition this page here. I also have a few options for the page settings, and I can access them by coming over to these three dots here. And first of all, you can see at the top, we have a few options for font. So default, we can have it be serif, or we can have it be mono. I'm just going to keep it default. We can also toggle on and off this small text. So if we want all of the text to be slightly smaller, we can do that. I'm going to leave that off. We can have this page be full width. So you see that moves the page completely, or back again. We have suggested edits, which is actually for when you're editing Notion. I'm going to leave that for now. And we can also have table contents toggled on and off, and I'll explain what that does in a second. The other thing we can do is come to customize page, and here we can adjust some of this stuff here. So top level page discussions is basically if we come up here and add a comment, this allows us to add a comment nice and easily here. Now, we've toggled that in the customize page options to be expanded, but if we didn't want that, we could have that be off. Backlinks I'll explain in a second, and page comments, again, that is a different way of seeing when someone comments on the page. So those are a few page settings. Now, inside a page, you can also have nestled pages within that, so sub-pages. So what I can actually do is, over here we have that getting started page, and I can actually drag this page, and if I just highlight it over the page we've created, it will actually drop inside of this page. And now we have a page within a page. Now there's a few things here to note. and that's in terms of how this looks in terms of hierarchy. So if we come over to the page here and we toggle down, you can actually see the page within the page here. And also if we click into the page from here, you can now see in the breadcrumbs we have getting started, and we can click back to the page. So there's a few navigational tricks there that you can see. The other thing I'd like to draw your attention to in terms of pages and subpages and page within pages is access hierarchy. So for example, if I was to share this to someone else, so let's just share this to my business email like so, and I'm going to invite this person to the page. What you'll first of all notice is that's actually moved in the sidebar from my private section, which is things that I can only see, and added it to my shared section because I'm sharing it with someone outside of the Notion workspace who doesn't already have access to the Notion workspace. So first of all, that's happened. But the second thing is that because I invited the person to the top level page, they would actually have access to both this page, which you can see here, and also if we go over to the getting started page, Sam also has access to the page here. And that's because access trickles down in Notion. So if you give someone access to a top level page, they'll have access to all of the pages that live within inside that. If you were to go one step below, so if you had page 1, 2, and 3 and gave them access to page 2, they would have access to page 2 and 3. So it trickles down. And the same is true of the team spaces. So the team spaces over here, we can come to the team space settings, and whoever's been invited to this team space will have access to all of the things inside of that team space. That is otherwise if we change the access levels. So for example, let's say we don't actually want Sam to have access to the getting started page. We can come here and remove him from this access and restrict access. And so now what you'll see is Sam has access to the page, but we've restricted him to have access from the getting started page. And that's because we've purposely done that. So I said everything in Notion is either a page or a block. So we've covered pages, now let's cover blocks. So inside of pages live blocks. And so essentially anything that you type or anything you do in Notion that's inside a page is a block. So you can see here in this getting started page, I've just clicked my cursor and it's asked me to write something or do the / command. But next to this, this block I've created, you can see we have these 6 dots here. And if I click these, there's a couple things that can happen. So first of all, if I click it, it's going to highlight that block, which you can now see, and it opens up this menu which allows me to manipulate the block in many ways. But amongst that, I could also take this block and drag it down. So now you can see I've dragged that block from over here to down here, and now it's moved the text up because it's sort of removed that block away. So using Notion in terms of actual word editing is really, really easy and intuitive because you can really manipulate the blocks nice and easily and adjust things really, really easily using this sort of block methodology. So if I go back to the sort of empty block I had, and let's just change this so there's some writing here. So we've got this is a block. Now if we come to the 6 dots here and highlight, let's take a look at what we can do. So obviously we could delete this. We could also duplicate this. So now I've created a duplicate of the block and I can move these up and down. What we can also do is use this turn into option, and this is going to open up all the different types of blocks we have. So you can see the blocks we can have are, for example, headings. So if I add this, this is now a heading inside of Notion. And if you remember, we looked at the table of contents. So we can turn this into a heading. We could also turn this into a to-do list. We could turn this into a bullet list. We can turn it into a numbered list, a toggled list. There's loads of different things we can do to the block. And this gives you a nice idea of the types of blocks that you can create inside of Notion. From this option as well, next to the 6 dots, we have this add button. And so if we want to create a new block, we can also add it like so from a block above or below us. Or nice and simply, we can just add the enter bar, and all of these are different blocks that we're now creating. Now, the final thing I want to show you in this beginner tutorial is the text editor. And this essentially allows us to do what we were just doing, which is editing and manipulating blocks, but basically do it a lot faster. So I'm actually going to just drag and delete some of this stuff here, and I'll show you what this looks like. So we hit enter to create a new block, and as Notion is telling us, we can do a few things. We can write something, we could hit space if we use Notion AI, or we can hit the slash command. Now again, the slash command is just going to open up that menu of different block types that we can use. So if from here we drag down the menu, we might decide that we want to use let's say a callout. So we can now create a callout, and this is a callout, and we've done that nice and quickly using the slash command, the text editor, instead of using the option menu here. Now that is quick, but we can even speed that up further by basically using typing out what block we want first. So for example, if I wanted a numbered list, I could hit or start writing out numbered, and it's going to give me that block, and I can just hit enter, and now I've created a number block nice and easily like so. We can also do this for other things. So let's do a bullet list, or we might say that we want a to-do list. Basically anything we want, we can start writing out, and you can see you get to learn the different sort of keyboard shortcuts to create all these different types of blocks. There are other shortcuts. So for example, if I just wanted the bullet list, I could do a slash and then hit a space. But you learn them over time, and basically by spending a bit of time of experimenting with these keyboard shortcuts, you really speed up the process and your agility moving around Notion. So now we've finished with the beginner tutorial, I want to give you our first example of something that we're going to create together, and that is a sales proposal. So you might want to start bringing your proposal writing process in Notion, and you can create proposals in Notion and then share them to your clients, either sharing them as guests or publishing them as websites. And so here is an example proposal that we've created. It's got a nice cover art, it's got an icon, it's got some call outs here, we've got some headings, all of this different stuff that we can create. So I'm just going to start creating this to give you an idea of what this would look like, and you can go ahead and create your own as well. So over in the private section, I'm going to add a page here, and then I'm going to call this sales proposal. Now again, first of all, we're going to want to add an icon. So I'm going to come to the icons here, hit custom and upload the icon of my choosing. Here we've got just my logo. You can use your own logo. Then we can add a cover. So I'm going to add a cover here. Again, I'm going to change it and search through my items here. You'll also notice that the icon and the cover doesn't quite look right. And that's because we haven't actually created this page as full width. So I'm going to add this as full width here. And then I can start writing. So I can just click in to start writing anything. And I think the first thing I had was a heading. So I'm going to do a text editor command here. I'm going to do /1, and that actually brings up a heading. And I'm going to say welcome, and let's say this is Acme Co. And that's the first thing I need to create. And I've created a heading really quickly there. The next thing I think I had was a heading, a call out, which had some information about what this page was. So again, I'm going to do / start writing call out, and all I need to do is call, and it's already there, and I can hit enter, and now I have this call out here, and I'm just going to change the icon here. I'm going to use Notion's native icons. I'm going to search for the information icon because this is like a bit of information that I'm giving them, and now I've formatted that. In this, I said, welcome to your brand proposal, so I can add that here. And then I also added some information below this call out. Now, if I hit enter, it's actually just going to hop me out of the call out, but that's fine. We can just take the block, find those 6 dots, drag the block into the space, and you'll see that blue line appears, and now we can add text here. So sometimes you can use the blocks and manipulate the blocks to just jump inside of things. So I'm going to add the content that was in here. And then the next thing I had was a bit of a column divide here. And the way to create columns is like so. So we've got our block that's standing here. And the first option we have, and probably the easiest, is again to use a keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to do / and then I'm going to write COL, and that's going to bring up my column options. And you can see we have all the way up to 5. So I'm going to hit 2 columns. And now I've got 1 column this side, which my cursor is on. But if I actually click over to this side, you can see there's a block that's already been created here for me, and I can click over, and now I'm in column 2. So first of all, I had a column here, and I believe again it was a call out, and I can just add that in there to sort of save the space and sort of visualize it for myself. And then the other side, I think I had an embed. So I'm going to do / embed, and this will allow me to add, as it says, PDFs, Google Docs, Google Maps, Spotify, but also photos, anything I want, I can add in there as an embed. And so I now have these 2 columns. So that's one way you can do columns, just for your information. Another way might be that you have already a call out that's in here, and then let's say below it you had that embed, and you can actually just manipulate again the blocks by taking this one here, clicking the 6 dots, dragging this over, and you can drag it over until you see the blue line there next to it, and I can add that in there, and now I've created 2 columns as well. So you've got quite a few options for creating columns. Now in this about section, I had some toggles and some dividers. So let's create that. So again, I'm going to do about here. I'm going to click out of this and just drag my my block into this to add content. I can hit enter now, and no, it's not going to move. And I'm going to do /togg for my first toggle list, and I can add information as a title in the toggle, and then I can click this triangle here, and it's going to toggle down, and then I can add some more information in here. And then also I had a divider, so I'm going to hit return. Automatically it's going to give me the toggle because that's the thing that's above that I created, but I'm just going to delete this like so. And then for divider, you can use either /divider like so and hit enter, or what I like, which is, and I'm going to come to the block here, hit delete. I'm going to come back up to the about, hit return, and then delete. So you'll see how I'm starting to navigate around here. Or you can use this keyboard shortcut, which is 3 slashes, and that automatically creates your divider. And then again, we can create a new toggle. So I'll stop there, but you can start to see how you can edit this page and really make it your own. So go ahead and start creating your own sales proposal, and do that for a few minutes, and then come back to the video to move on. So kicking off our intermediate tutorial here, we're going to start with databases. So again, I'm going to come to my private section here and add a page, as you've seen to do. And I'm just going to call this page database. Now, before we were just ignoring the prompts we have here, and we were just opening up this page and beginning to write inside of it. But for databases, we can come down to this getting started with options here. And what I'm going to choose is this table option here. Now, if I click table, it's going to ask me if I want to create a new table, so start a blank database, or if I want to link to an existing database. So we're going to create a new database here, so I'm going to hit new table. And now we've created a database. So inside of this page, we have a database. So it's important to note that databases, again, are blocks, but when we create a source database, so where this page is, this is just the only thing that you can have inside of this database, or this page. So if I come down and try and click below the database and add information here, I can't add anything here. All I can do is add a description at the top here, or add icons. So I can't actually add any information here. I'll show you how you actually use linked views of databases in a second to be able to manipulate the page with views of databases. So we have our database here. Let's add a description. So this is a database. And then again, we can also add a cover. Let's have this as a cover. Now, the first thing I want to show you is the properties. So each of these rows here, these columns here, I should say, are properties. So automatically Notion has given us one property, which is this tags property. And we can come and click here and hit edit property. And then we can go to type. And now we can see all of the different properties we can have. So if we actually wanted this to be a checkbox, we could change this into a checkbox, and then we might even rename this to done, for example. So we now have a done checkbox. So this is how we edit the properties. If we want to add one for ourselves, we could hit add here, and now we can choose again from the different properties. So let's say we want a person property, for example, and we want this to be for when we're assigning something to someone. So we're going to use this as assignee. And now we have that in here, and inside of here, we can add the different people that we want to assign to. Let's add one more property here. Let's say we want a date property. So I'm going to come down and hit date. And let's say we want this to act as our due date. We can add this in here. And now we have 3 properties. And for example, we could set this for today. And we've adjusted these properties for this particular database. So those are the properties of a database. And the other thing we have here is the title, which is called name. So this is if we say, for example, clean up kitchen is the task. And so we've added this in the name section for the title. Now what you'll also notice is we have this open option appearing. And so if we open, now you'll see that the line or the record in this database also doubles as a database page. So again, everything in Notion is either a page or a block. So we have a database, which is the block, and then inside of each of the databases, you have the ability, or they by default are also doubling as pages. So for example, in this cleanup kitchen, if I open this as a full page, you can see in the breadcrumbs inside of database, we have cleanup kitchen. And at the top, we have the properties that we created for this database. And it's showing, at here at the top. And then also if we wanted to create anything in here, so this is a block in here, we can create this here. And again, we can format this in any way we like using the / command. So we can add columns, anything we like, and basically use this page like any other page, except it just lives within a database. Now, if we change anything here, so if we was to check this off as done, if we was to actually move this date to yesterday, and we go back over to the database by either going to the breadcrumbs or hitting the sidebar here, again, it's the same record, so it's going to change those properties in here as well. So it's the same page, it's the same database properties, but we're just viewing it slightly differently. So that's the first thing to sort of get your head around, that we have databases and each of the database records are also pages with the properties at the top here. They're also shown in this table view here along the side as columns. Now, the second thing to get your head around is probably that we can have multiple views of the same database. So by default, we were given this database as a table, but if we hit this plus option here, we can actually choose a new view, and it's giving us some options here, and we can actually see all of them. So we could see this as a board view, a list, a timeline, a calendar, or a gallery. So as we've got a date property, let's use the calendar option. So I'm going to hit calendar, and now you'll see we have a calendar view of our database. And if I come to these three options here, which is allowing me to edit the layout of this particular database view, then I can see that we have this in a calendar, and I can also see that this is showing the calendar by that due date property. So there was already a date property inside of the database, so Notion has automatically used that as the way to represent the dates here. I can also toggle off showing weekends, or I can show weekends. I can do lots of things. I can manipulate this. And then the key thing to see here is that, again, we've got that cleanup kitchen that we chose on the July 16th. And so now in this calendar view, it's showing me the task on the 16th of July. You also see up here we have no date. So the things that weren't given a date, those untitled pages, they're going to live up here. And then if we wanted to open them, we can then give them a due date, for example, on the 18th. And now that's going to appear in my view here. So that's a calendar option. Let's find some more. So let's do a board option. Now, because I haven't got anything databases grouping by, you'll see what this does. So I'm going to hit board, and it's going to group it by assignees, which is fine. But actually, let's come in here and add a property. So I'm going to add a status property here, and it's automatically giving me not started, in progress, and complete, or done, which is great. And then what I can do is come to these option here. I'm going to come to group. I'm going to group this by, and instead of grouping it by assignee, I'm going to group by status. And then I'm also going to untoggle the option that says hide empty columns, and we can color the columns here. So now you can see we're again seeing the same information of the database, but in a different view. So each of our tasks were set to not started, but if I was to move this over into in progress, it's now showing over in progress. Again, this is the same record that we had in that table view, but it's just using the different properties to view the information differently. Also, what we can do is come to here and show more properties in this option. So if I want to see who the assignee was, who the due date was, I can see it all here. And again, it's all coming from the same database, this source database. The final thing to get your head around with databases is that you actually have the option to create database templates. Now, as you know, inside of each of the databases, we have a page for each record. Now, database templates essentially allows you to create a template for that record. So for example, if I hit new template, and I'm just going to call this database template, and I'm going to add some information in here. So first of all, I could add content in here. So I could have, this is a database template. I might also add an icon in here, and I want it to be this specific icon here. I might also add a cover in here, and I say I want it to be this specific color. And then also, let's say that I want some of the properties to be a particular way when I do this. So actually, I want whoever the person who duplicated this page to be the person who's assigned, and I also want the due date to be whenever the date was today, when it was duplicated. So today, and not started is great. So now I have this database template. I can come out of this. And if I was to open any of the other pages that haven't already got content in, so if I go over to here, this has got content, so I can't actually apply the template. But if I come to one of these untitled pages, you'll see in the options here, I now have the option to add a template, and I'm going to hit database template. It's going to give it that title. It's going to give it that cover. It's going to give it the content in the page body. And then also it's going to adjust the properties. So I now have myself as the assignee because I clicked the template, and also the due date is today because we clicked it today. So that is how you add database templates. And you can also come up to here and you can edit these templates. So if you've created a template in the past, you want to edit it or update it, you do that like so. And then the other thing you can also do is make one of the templates default. And so you can see here, the default at the moment is the empty database template, which is kind of just the empty option. But if I come to these three dots here, I could actually set this as a default template. Now I could say it's for all views in the database. So anywhere there is a view of this original database, I can have it. Or if I just want it for this table view, for example, then I can have it as the database template default. So I'm going to just pick it for this this table view. And now whenever I create a new database record, it's going to apply that database template automatically with the content inside. Now we've discussed databases and what they do, I want to show you linked databases. So I'm actually just going to adjust this title to make sure this makes as much sense as possible. So we have our source database here. Now I'm going to hit add a new page in my private section. And let's say I wanted to create a dashboard that was bringing together some multiple bits of information. So I'm going to choose an icon here. Let's have the dashboard icon. And let's say I wanted to have at the top just a simple view of my most important tasks. And I could just have this as a simple to do option. And then let's also say I wanted to have a view of all tasks, and I wanted a view of that source database. So what I'm going to do here is using the text editor, I'm going to do / and I'm going to start searching linked view until I see that linked view option pop up. I'm going to hit return, and now it's given me the option to choose any of my existing databases to create a linked view of. So we have the ones that were created automatically when we created the account, but I'm going to choose that source database here. And now you see it's bringing in that source database as a linked view. And I can have any of the views that are in the source database. So if I wanted the calendar view or the board view that we set up, any of these I want, or I could create a new table view altogether. So I'm going to do new table view, and I'm just going to hit done. So now you can see we have the original source database that lives here, but inside of this dashboard page, amongst having the ability to edit and manipulate the other blocks around the page, we can also link a view of this database. And I can even tuck away this database title, and I can see this information here. And again, if I edit anything here, so if I was to uncheck this, it's adjusting everything from the source database. So it's a complete linked view. It's completely synced. They're not separate entities, they're completely synced. The other thing to be aware of is if I was to delete this linked view of the database, it doesn't delete anything of the source database. This is the source database. If we wanted to delete all the information here, we would have to come over here and actually delete this here. So creating linked views is basically a way of seeing the same database in multiple contexts. So we can see the information either using the views of the database, so the different layouts, but also we can see it in different contexts in terms of the pages they live within. So that's linked views of databases, and I'm just going to bring that linked view of the source database back. The other thing to be aware of is we can have the same, or we can have multiple source databases sitting next to each other in linked views. So we have the source database here, but also I can have a new view, and I can choose from my existing databases, and let's say we bring in that meetings database. And so now, sitting side by side, we have the source database, and we also have here the meetings database. Now let's move on to some two advanced features of the database. And I'm going to just adjust our source database, and I'm going to call this database A here. Then I'm also going to create a net new database, just hit new table, and I'm going to call this database B. Now, the first thing I want to show you in advanced features is relations. So we're going to add a relation to this database. Again, the ways to do this is either we could add a new column here and search through the properties, or we can come to these three dots here, come to properties, and we could add a new property. So let's add a new property from here, and I'm going to search relation. And now we can add the relations. Now, the first thing we can do is choose which database this is going to be related to. So we're relating one database to the other. So I'm going to relate database A to database B. And here we have, again, a few options. So first of all, we can either just add this relation as a single way relation, or we could also show this on database B. For now, let's just do a single relation. So if we add a single relation, now we have database B as an option here to be related, and I can drag this along the different columns. Let's have it at the front here. And so if we had some content here and we go back to database A, when we come to the database B relation, what this allows us to do is open this up and link any of the pages or any of the records that are in database B. So we have the two untitled options, but we can just have that one page that we created here. And now we've related it to this. And in context, there's reasons why you'll do this, but that's a single way relation. And when we do this over on database B, we don't see anything else, so it's not related back. But if we go to database A, and let's actually edit the property, and over here, we're going to show on database B, and we're going to make this a two-way relation. And it's asking us what we want to call it on database B, the property. Database A is fine. And I'm going to update this relation like so. And so now we have database B related here. If we go over to database B, you can see over database B, we have database A related back. And so we can see clean up kitchen and some content here. So they're both, it's a two-way relation. So whatever you relate there relates back to the item. So for example, just to show you this again, if I come to database A in the relation of database B, I open this up, I've got the other database templates or the other pages to choose from. Let's choose this database template here, and now it's linked. And if I come back to database A, it's going to be linked to now two records. So hopefully that makes sense. The second advanced feature here is rollups. And rollups essentially use relations that live inside of your database, and they pull information from that page that's been related. So let's, for example, create a rollup in database A. So we could either hit new here again, we could come to these options here, come to properties. We can even open up one of these database records as a page and add a property here. And again, let's scroll down and find the rollup option. And now we have the rollup. Let's format or configure this rollup. So first of all, the relation it's looking for. So we need to select the relation. We've only got one in this database, which is that database B relation. So we're going to hit that here. And then it's basically asking us what property inside of database B that we want to pull in. So one option is just the name itself, but we've already got the relation, so that doesn't do much for us. But we could also bring in the tag option here. So now this is pulling from that relation and finding the tag of the page. So we haven't got an actual tag added here. So let's add a tag here, and let's say new tag, and we're going to tag database or this some content here record with a new tag. And so if we go back over to database A, and you can already see this has happened, it's pulling in that new tag. And again, this is because in the rollup, essentially what we're saying is the relation is database B and the property is tags. So let's pull in, roll up the tag property for this page that has been connected. If I was to add another page here, and let's say this is called tag 2. Now we've got one record saying new tag, another record saying tag 2. If I come back over to database A, and for example, let's connect or link another page here. Now it's going to pull in both the new tag and tag 2 using that rollup. So hopefully that makes sense. And then once you've got that inside of a rollup, you can do multiple things. So the calculate option, I was just showing original, but we could also count all. So we could count how many tags there are. We could count unique values. We can do lots of different calculations using this roll up property. So now let's move on to our second example for this intermediate tutorial, and we're going to set up a projects and task database and relate them together. We've already actually got a projects and task database that was created automatically when we created the account, but I'm just going to create this net new in the private workspace so you can see how this is made. So we're going to hit new page. Let's first have a projects database, hit new table, start a new table, and then we'll add the icon, and I like to do a folder for my projects as it's sort of a grouping of tasks. So we'll add that here. I'm going to get rid of the tags option here, and I'm just going to use this select all option to get rid of all of the different records and sort of start afresh. So for my projects, I might want a date property that might be the sort of target deadline of the project altogether. And then also I might just have an assignee person that is ultimately the project owner. So let's do this as project owner, and I'm going to leave like that for now. Then again, I'm going to create a new page, hit a new table like so. I'm going to delete all these options here just to make this nice and easy to add. I'm going to call this tasks, and I like to use the check icon for my tasks. And here again, I want a date property. Let's call this the due date. I want a person property that's going to be my assignees. I want a status property, which is going to tell me when something is done. Now, the next thing I want to do is relate these two together. So I'm going to actually do this in the tasks. I'm going to hit add new. I'm going to find the relation property, and I'm going to link the task database to our new, and we have to show 3 more here, our new projects database here. So I'm going to add projects. Now I could show this on the projects, and it depends if we need it to be shown. So do we need to see our tasks in our projects? We might not need to if we can create a linked view of the task database inside of our projects, and I'll show you that in a second. But actually I do want to show it on projects because I want to be able to pull the information from the tasks into the projects, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to actually make this a two-way relation. Tasks is fine, and we're going to add this relation here. We could also change the icon of these properties, so I'm going to give it the same folder icon as the projects database has, just to make this nice, and I'm going to hide this from the view. And then over on the projects, I can also edit this tasks to show the tasks, and again I'm going to hide this from this view. So now we've done this, let me show you some of the things we can now do. First of all, I might want to add a progress bar inside of the projects. Now what I'm going to do is use the roll up option here to do the progress bar. So I'm going to call this progress, and I'm going to choose a relation, and the relation of course is the tasks. So that's why we want it to be a two-way relation, because we need to be able to use the relation to use in the roll up. And then for the properties, I'm actually going to use the status. And instead of showing the original, so just putting in what state it is, whether it's done, in progress, I'm actually going to use the calculate option to find a percent. And I'm going to find a percent per group. And I want to see how many out of all of the tasks that are belonging to that particular project have been checked as complete. So now we can see percent per group complete. And instead of it just being a number, so 50%, 60%, I'm actually going to use the bar option here, and now show it as a number as well as having a bar. So now we've created a progress bar. And again, I can update the icons here. And so just to show you this in practice, if we had, let's create project A here. And inside of project A, let's just add, and we can actually add tasks in the task database from this relation box. So I'm just gonna have task 1 and hit enter as a new task. Task 2, hit enter, let's click out, sorry, and just gonna come back into this relation box. I'm gonna hit another task, task 3, and I'm gonna hit new task, and then task 2, have that as a new task. So now we have a couple of tasks in here, and you can see the progress bar is currently showing us 0%. But if we go back over to the task database, and let's mark 2 of these off as done. Now if we go back over to the projects database, it's showing me that 66% of my tasks have been complete, which is perfect. So that's how that progress bar works in practice. The other thing I want to show you is how to create a database template. So first of all, inside of our projects, we can actually see the number of tasks we have in here at the top. And so I guess you could use this to see which tasks have been assigned to this project, but we can't really see which have been complete, and it's not a great view of that. The other option we have is we could also come to this property here, and we could show this as a page section. So if I go to page section, it's now showing me in a sort of separate section of the page the different tasks, And again, it's good, but it's not quite great in terms of seeing the properties in the tasks and things like that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to show this as a property. I'm actually going to choose to hide the property, so always hide, so that tucks it away from view. And then I'm going to create a database template. So I'm going to come up to this blue line here. I'm going to hit project template, give it the same icon as the database. And then inside of this project, I'm going to do a /3 to get the heading. I'm going to say tasks, and then I'm going to do /linked, and I'm going to bring in a linked view of the task database and hit new table view here and hit done. And so now I have a linked view of the task database. I've already got a tasks title, so I can remove the database title. And then I'm going to use what's called a self-referential filter here. So I'm going to hit the filter. I'm going to say projects, and I'm going to say the project contains the project template. So the project contains the project template, and I'm just going to adjust these properties here so that we can see them all in one go. And now I have my tasks here. And what I'm also going to do is add a advanced filter rule, and I'm going to say that the status is not complete or done, and add that filter here. And then I'm going to click out just to get out of this template. So now what this is going to do, and I can actually come to the project A we've already got set up, and I'm going to apply that project template, and it's going to give it the icon, but we've already got a title here, so it doesn't replace the title. And so now what you'll see is inside of this view, we have a link of task 1, which has been related here, and it's the only one showing because it has not been completed. And that's because that self-referential filter, when it is applied, when it has that template applied, it then replaces the project template with the actual page, which is project A, and it does that automatically for us. So now project contains project A is the filter, and status is not done is also the filter. And so it's now showing task 1, which is related to project A and has not been completed. So that's how that works, and that is actually a really useful use case for managing projects and tasks in Notion and how we generally do it. What we would also do here is at the project template, we would set this as default. So for all views in projects, we want this template to be applied. And now I can come in here, and I've always got that project template. Let's call this project B, and I can open this up, and now I can have all of my tasks in here. I can also create tasks directly from this page that go into my task database. So let's say I need to take out bins, book appointment, go shopping, and these all appear in here. And if I go back to my task database, they're appearing here as well for go shopping, book appointment, take out bins. And also if I was to show the projects, we can see that this is coming from project B and this is coming from project A. So in the final portion of this video, when we move into the expert tutorial, I want to show you two advanced features in Notion, that's formulas and automations. So starting with formulas, and this is best if I give you an example from the outset. So I'm going to create a new database again. And let's say in this particular example, we're looking to manage our objectives and key results inside of Notion. So we may create a dedicated database for our key results. And so inside of here, we might, we can get rid of this tags property. We might set up a few properties. So we might have, for example, our target number for this particular key result. And then also we might have a property that is our current or our actual number that we're currently on. And so, for example, let's say the key result was to close 10 clients this month. So that is our goal. So the target would be 10 clients. And then let's say at the moment, we've currently closed this month 6. So at the moment, we can see how well we're doing quite easily because it's smaller numbers, but you might want a way to visualize this information here. And this is where formulas can come in handy. So I'm going to hit new, and then from the option, I'm going to use the formula option. And here I'm going to say, call this progress. Now inside of a formula, we're basically doing some light coding, but it's nothing to be afraid of. So the first and easiest way to explain this is if a formula, we might want to be able to calculate something. So for here, it might be we want to calculate the percent that we are going towards achieving this key result. So the way to do that would be to bring in one of these properties, which we can do by clicking down here. And let's say we want to do the target, and then for divide, we're going to do / like so for divide, and then current. And now hopefully if we hit done, we can now see that number, And from the number format, instead of it being a number format, we're just going to use the percent. So we can see this as a percent. Now I think I got the numbers wrong. So let's do this as, it's actually current. So I'm going to type current and it's going to appear here. And I want target and it appear here. And now I hit done. And you can see we've got 10 clients per month. We're looking for 10. Our current is 6. So our progress is 60%. And so that's a really easy way to create a formula. We can also come and edit this property. And again, because it is a percent, we've got the option to make this a bar property and we can see the progress here. So essentially formulas are ways of showing results, visually showing things, or doing calculations inside a Notion based on the properties of that record. The other thing we have are automations. And when I talk about automations, I'm talking about automations that are native to Notion. And so we have essentially 3 different types of automations in Notion. We have buttons, we have database automations, and then finally we have database buttons automations. So let's go through each one. First of all, buttons is the easiest. So if I do /button, I can bring in a database or a Notion button and I can call it whatever I want. So let's just say new button. And so essentially, like any automation, there's a trigger and then there's the things it does. So in Notion, it represents it like this. When any of these occur, and that is button is clicked, so that's the only option we have, do this, and it's asking us to add an action. And we can do a multitude of things. So we can insert simple blocks, but we can also add pages to different pages or even to databases. We can edit pages or edit pages in databases, or we can open pages, we can send notification slacks. So there's a whole bunch of things we can do. Let's just keep it simple for now and insert a block and say when this block is called, we're going to have this call out be created and it's going to say, yay, you hit the button. And we can even give this icon a click emoji, like so, and hit done. And so now anytime we click this new button, it's going to create, yay, you hit the button. Nice and easy. So it's something that's happening automatically for us. The next option we have are database automations. And so if I go back over to database A, our original database, and let's say we go over to this edit option here. Now we can come over and you'll see there's automations here at the bottom. And I'm going to click this and we can rename this as a database automation. And currently it's for pages in database A, but we can also make the automation just specific to views in the database. So not just all views, but specific views in database A. But I want it to be all views across database A. So it's a universal automation for this database. And now it's saying, again, when any of these occur, and for the button, it was just button is clicked. But for databases, we actually have a couple options. And basically, again, inside a record, whatever the property is an option for a trigger. So for example, let's say when the done option is set to checked, we're going to do something. And let's say we want to add an action and we want to send a notification to and select the recipients, specific people, and we want it to be the page creator. Or in fact, let's use the person property and select the assignee person property. And so whoever this task is done by, we say the task is done and hit create. And so now essentially anytime any of these tasks are checked off, so let's check this one off here, it's then going to send a notification in Notion to the person who's been assigned, which you can see happens over here in my inbox. And now I'm getting database sent you a message that the database template page, the task is done. And that is how that automation works. So for database automations, you can select the trigger based on the properties, and when that happens, you can have something else happen. So that's database automations. Now the final one is database buttons automations. So again, I'm going to create a new property here, and I'm going to find the button option here, and this is a database button, and so I can change the label of the button. So we have the actual property name, database button. But if I wanted to change the database button label, so let's just call it click me, it's now got a different name to the actual property name. We can edit this property. And so again, when any of these occurs is button is clicked because there's only one option for the trigger. But for doing things, it's all of the options we had for the database automation. So again, if we wanted to say that when the button is clicked, we're going to change the due date to today. And also we're going to select done is checked. And let's actually change this to complete. And so this might be a database button that we have that allows us to do two things at once. So instead of saying that this thing has been checked and making sure that it was the due date today, we could say, for example, this thing is on July 18th and it's currently unchecked. But if I hit complete, you'll now see it changes the due date to today, and it also completes it. So it's doing two things at once. And that's one example of a database button. So in our final example here, let's update our projects and task database to include one example of each of these two features. So first of all, for the projects, I want to add a formula. And here's a formula I often create for my clients. So first of all, they may have a services database somewhere. So let's create a services database here and hit the table option and new table. And this might just be a list of all of their different services. And one thing that they might have here is the price of the service. So if it's a standard service, they have the price. So for example, let's say it's website development, and this is always for the price of, let's say, $3,000. And we can adjust this number property here, edit the property, and we're gonna call this US dollar. So we've got the price of this services. And what we can also do in the projects database is have a relation to the services. So relation, find the services database here, add the relation. We don't need it to be a two-way relation for the time being. And let's even give it a cart emoji, like so. So now in this projects database, as well as having the target deadline, the project owner, the progress of the project, we can also see what services this project is completing for the client. And so let's add for the time being that this project A is completing website development. So a formula that we can add here is basically going to take the information from that relation and do a sum of how much the cost of the services. So essentially, if I come here and I am going to do a formula, and I'm going to do current value as the title, and I'm going to hit edit. Now using Notion's formulas 2.0, we can add a formula in here that's going to do something quite cool. So I'm going to map a property like you can with a roll up, and I'm going to choose the tasks, and I'm going to do current. Sorry, we're not mapping the tasks. Let's map the services, do current, full stop, price, brackets, and then let's do a sum of that and hit done. And we're going to make this property a US dollar. So now we can see that the website services, because we've assigned website dev, the current value of this project is $3,000. And if we were to add another one here, let's say Google Ads management as a service, and let's say this was 2,000 here. And if we come back to the project and we also add this as a relation to Google Ads management, we can now see the current value for this this particular client who's having both the website development and Google Ads as a services is $5,000. And so this can be a really helpful way of tracking the value of each of your clients. And if you were using Notion as a CRM as well, you can also see the different values at the different stages. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing we can do is database automations. And I'm going to add a property here that's called statuses. And in the statuses, I'm going to add a few options for managing clients. So let's say prospect, let's say discovery call, let's say proposal. In the in progress option, so click out of that. In the in progress option, I'm going to hit onboarding. Whoops, need to make sure we hit enter. Onboarding. Let's change in progress to delivery, and let's do offboarding as an option, and then done is perfect. So now I have these different statuses. In this table option, I'm actually going to change this layout to a board view, and it's automatically done it in the statuses option, which is great. You can see that it's currently showing the groupings. It's hiding empty groups, which I don't want, and I'm just going to color these options here. So now in the properties, let's actually bring in the services, and let's also bring in the current value and the target deadline. And so now you can start to see how this gets really helpful. So for project A, let's rename this. Let's say it's just for Acme Co. You can now see, for example, if we had Acme Co and they were in the discovery call stage, we can see what services they're interested in and potentially the current value. We could also use this count all option, and we could do more options, sum, and the sum of the current value. So if this project B just had website development, and at this stage we can see that the prospect is worth 3,000 in summary, if we was to move Acme code back over, we can now see we have $8,000 of potential value in the prospect stage. So that's a nice little thing there, but not what I wanted to show you. What I want to show you is database automations. So I'm going to click this database automation here. Again, I could do these 3 buttons here and select an automation here, but let's click here to create the automation, hit new automation, and I'm going to say I want some proposal tasks to be created automatically for me. So the trigger is going to be when this, when any of the pages is moved into the proposal stage, hit done, I'm going to do this thing. And the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add pages to, I'm going to select the database, I'm going to say the task database, and I'm going to say I want the task to be create proposal and send to client. I'm going to edit the property. I want the assignee to be a particular person. It's always going to be me. And then also I want the due date to be the day that it was moved into that option, which would be today. And then also I want to make sure that the related project or the project it's within is the page that was moved into that section. So this page, and then I'm going to hit create. Now I've got this proposal tasks. You can see in this section here, we have the discovery call, and let's just delete this. At the moment, we've just got one task here, task 1 from earlier, and let's complete this. So now we've done that. Let's say we had the discovery call with the client. We then move them into proposal. Now we've done that, the database automation will run. And if we move back over, we've now got a task being automatically created for us that says create proposal and send to client. It's given today's due date, it's assigned me to it, and now all I need to do is go in here and project manage this by completing this and sending it off. And so that's another example of a database automation and how it could be useful in the context of using it for your agency. And just like that, you are an expert in Notion. So now it's time to get building your agency system inside of Notion. And I have an entire video dedicated somewhere up here to that you can check out. If you want to save yourself a ton of time, you can also check out my Notion for Agencies template in the link in the video description. And if you found this video useful, please do consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel for more. Until next time, bye bye.